Hello guys, welcome to Hollywood Recapped. Today I will be presenting the movie The Dream was released in 2003. The movie starts with an American student Matthew going to Paris and meets an amazing twin brother and sister Theo and Isabella. It is Matthew who is narrating the story of his Paris stay. Matthew likes watching movies and has watched nearly all movies of his time. For his interest in movies he meets twin Isabella and Theo. He becomes friend with the twin brother and sister. There is no restriction in screening the movie, which is why everybody is sitting out and agitating, and at this place. Matthew comes and meets Isabella. Isabella tells Matthew that she had always seen him near this place, and then Matthew says her that he is from America, so he couldn't make any friend till now. She introduces Matthew with her brother Theo. They talk about films, and they soon build a healthy bonding between them. Within a short time police enters the scene, and everybody flee from that agitation place. While roaming in the street of Paris they talk on all subjects, and Matthew tells the twin that he is fortunate to meet them. Happy Matthew after reaching home writes a letter to his mom and mentions Isabella and Theo. In the morning, Theo calls Matthew and invites him for dinner at his house. Matthew reaches Theo's house and takes a sneak peek of this house, and finds the house a big and splendid one. Isabella takes Matthew to her mother and introduces him to her. Her mother wasn't expecting Matthew in the dinner, but anyhow they adjusted him. Isabella then introduces Matthew to her father. Her father is a poet. At the dinner table Isabella's father talks about poetry, but Matthew isn't interested in his poetry talks. At this he asks Matthew of what was he thinking, but Matthew replies him that he was thinking of correlation of the lighter and the harmony that was around them. Father was impressed by Matthew and replied to Theo that of his generation. Like Matthew too can see the constructive things going around. Father and Theo indulge in verbal fight on this matter. Actually, Theo and Isabella's mother and father don't live here. He only visits for sometimes here. Only Theo and Isabella live here in this house. In night he writes them a check and leaves this house. But Matthew doesn't leaves the place and stays here. Isabella asks Matthew for his staying tonight in her house. Matthew and Theo talk and find them of opposite thought and conflict of ideas. But still they are a good friend and share few common viewpoints too. Tonight, Matthew stays at this place. In the night when Matthew get up from his bed to pee, he peeps in Theo's bedroom and is shocked to see that both brother and sister are sleeping in the same bed in naked state. Matthew then goes to his room for a sleep. In the morning, when Matthew is sleeping then Isabella wakes him up by wetting his eyelid, and then Matthew astonishingly asks her about this, then she replies that she wakes Theo too in this fashion. Then Isabella calls Matthew to the bathroom, and when he is brushing his teeth, she touches his lips and tells him that his lips are very beautiful. Isabella tells Matthew that he can stay in this house for as much time he wants, because she and her brother Theo are the only two guys staying this big house alone. Theo tells Matthew that he and Isabella are one, because when they were born their body was stuck to each other. This is the reason that they are so close and comfortable with each other in all situations. Matthew was thinking that both brother and sister are having a physical relationship with each other. But Matthew agrees to stay in their house. In the next scene all three were chilling in the room and they decide to play a game. The game was that one of the three will deliver a dialogue and others will guess the movie name. If one loses the game then he or she will have to dare. They play the game and dare together from running from the museum. They all are happy and in each other's company. In the house, Matthew finds himself uncomfortable with the strange relationship of Theo and Isabella. Matthew takes Theo to outside and asks Theo how can he have such an open relationship with his sister Isabella. Then Theo tells him that they were stuck with each other at the time of their birth. So, they think that they are one from inside and outside and removed all hesitations between them. In the next scene, all three were hanging out in their house when they start to play the game when Theo performs an act from a movie, which Isabella and Matthew couldn't guess and they lose the game. Now, Theo gives them a dare to act and get intimate with each other. Isabella starts unbuttoning herself and removes her clothes from her body. Matthew denies getting intimate and tries to run away from the room, but Theo catches him. At last Matthew and Isabella get intimate. This was Isabella's first time which she and Matthew loved so much. They continue their relationship. Matthew asks Isabella in the bed about her strange relationship with her brother Theo. She then replies him that they are twin and were stuck with each other in their birth. Matthew then asks her if her parents come to know about Theo's and her strange relationship, then what will she do? She said that she will commit suicide. In next scene, we find Theo and Matthew are chilling in a room. Matthew says to him that they both are being close to each other and then too they made him a part of them. But Theo tells him that he is only their best friend and not a part of him and Isabella. Theo and Isabella live a costlier life, like drinking costly wines, wearing expensive dresses and like that. The money that their father gave to them has now dried up. All three are now working to run the house. Theo is now jealous of Matthew and Isabella's relationship, which is now getting closer. Theo meets a girl in his college and dates her. One day all three are taking bath in the bathroom when Theo tells Matthew of Vietnam and blames all American for this. But Matthew denies this and tells Theo that it's not American citizen but the president who takes the decision of war. He tells Theo that if I would have not agreed to take part in the war, then I would have been jailed. Matthew tells him that this is the reason that he came to Paris for his education. He doesn't believe in violence, instead he thinks that peace is the solution of all differences and conflicts. But Theo disagrees with Matthew. Isabella stops this talk in between and demands Matthew to prove his love for her and Theo. Matthew asks her what to do to prove his love for them. She then takes a razor and says that we will cut off your pubic hairs. Matthew is now angry on both brother and sister and tells them to be a mature person. Things don't go as your likes, and he tells them to be a grown-up guys. Matthew tells Isabella to come out of her brother's shadow. He offers her to go with him for a date. Isabella and Matthew spend a great time on their first date. They return to their home and find that Theo is having a sex with a girl in the room next to them. Isabella gets jealous of her brother at this situation and cries loudly. In the next scene, we see that Matthew and Theo are having discussion. Matthew tells Theo that he doesn't believe in his thoughts. Instead he should go out and join the agitation that is going outside in the street. Meanwhile, Isabella enters the room and takes Theo and Matthew to a tent in the room next to them. She and Theo used to play and sleep in the same tent when they were just a little kid. All three sleep in the same tent now. In the morning time, Isabella and Theo's parents come to the room and see three of them sleeping in the tent. He assumes what could have been going inside the tent. He is so angry at them, but without disturbing them he writes a check and leaves the house. Isabella wakes up late this day and finds the check on the table. She understood that her parents were here and saw them sleeping. She now finds herself in a different situation. She decides to gas the whole house and burn herself to death. An agitation is going on down the street and a stone is thrown to her house which broke the glass of the window. Meanwhile Theo and Matthew wake up and get down the street to join the revolution. Isabella too joins them in the revolution. Police force is on the other side of the agitation and tries to stop the agitation. Theo decides to scatter the crowd by violence, and he does so by throwing stones on the crowd. Matthew tries to stop Theo, but is unable to do so. Isabella joins Theo in stoning the crowd. The crowd is scattered and there is situation of chaos. Matthew takes him off from the crowd and violence. Police now takes action and charge the agitating and violent crowd. At this scene movie ends. Let's discuss the ending now. The revolution which is shown in the movie is nothing but the conflict between the characters. Theo and Isabella are twins and share a deep attachment towards each other. They can't accept any one of them being with other person. Isabella dated and had a relationship with Matthew, and Theo too had been dating a girl of his college. Both got upset when found each other in other people's arm. Isabella and Theo's relationship was so awkward that society could not accept a brother and sister living in a relationship. Matthew always tried to awaken them about their awkward relationship, but they refused to stay from each other. The revolution is symbolized as the society from which Theo and Isabella are trying to fight with. Matthew felt uneasy with this brother-sister relationship that he took himself away from them and lost. This movie beautifully depicts the inner state of mind with the act.